May I now request Ambassador Manju Seth to please join us. Thank you so much for coming. She is a career diplomat, retired from the Indian Foreign Service in 2014. Her last assignment was as Ambassador of India to Madagascar and Comoros. She has extensive experience in India and abroad in dealing with diverse issues relating to international relations, governance, policy matters, administration, publicity, media, protocol, culture, and economic and commercial matters. Seth is an advisor now for international collaboration with Organization for Diaspora Initiatives, ODI, and an advisor with Umbra Foundation, which works on women empowerment issues.
So much, Professor Kamala. It is such a pleasure to be here today. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here today and to listen in and to be a part of this very, very interesting webinar organized by the GRFTT, which is, as you said, doing excellent work and excellent. It's contributing the seminars, truth seminars, to increasing our knowledge on different issues related to migration and global migration as well. And today I'd just like to talk a little bit about migration in the UAE. But of course, I will mention a little bit about Madagascar also, where I was posted. Why do people migrate? The essential thing is to improve their lives, to make their economic situation better. And many of these people from India who are migrating abroad for work. So many people who are migrating from India to different countries, including the UAE, go for economic reasons. And very often they are at the bottom of the socio-economic pyramid. They're not very well off. A large number of them. There are many, of course, going as professionals and highly skilled workers. But many of them are going for work, and they're very, because of this, they are vulnerable. And if you look at what has been happening in the Gulf, there are about estimated in the Gulf about 30 million Indian migrants who've contributed the economies of these Gulf countries. And to the UAE, it is estimated there are about 3.4 million. And we don't know how many of them are women. There are all kinds of guesstimates, but there are a large number of women in the healthcare sector, in as nurses, etc., and in the retail sector, services sector. And in addition, there are a large number who go as domestic workers. And these domestic workers are subject to a lot of uncertainties when they go there, because not many of them go with valid, what are called employment contracts. Many of them tend to go on visit visas, and then some of the employers convert them into normal work visas, and otherwise they continue to be exploited. They become illegal. And those who go illegal, undocumented workers, they become, and so they're completely in the control of their employers. And also because of the kafala system that is in place in the UAE, where the employer is sort of in control or controls the working conditions and does not allow till he or she gives permission for them to change their employment. They cannot change their employment. And this leads to a lot of exploitation, both and abuse. There are many cases, many instances where our embassies and, when I was working at headquarters in the division here, people received so many complaints. But unfortunately, these complaints could never be proved. And because of lack of evidence, it's his word, her word against his. Or whoever, this lady employee or the employer or the male employee, whoever, because the control is so strong that they are unable to get justice or even get out of their employment that they have got into. And so this is and many of them who do manage to escape or run away from their homes where they face abuse, both sexual and physical abuse, become undocumented, and they live in small dormitories and get some part-time work somewhere where it's further exploited. And at the same time, now with this COVID-19 situation, if you see, they are again, as both Professor Ganesh and Professor Maria have said, that many of them are the most vulnerable. They're at the bottom of the socio-economic pyramid, and they are also undocumented. So when COVID-19 has broken out, it has affected everybody, but these women or these domestic workers are the most affected. There are, I believe there are some male domestic workers as well, but their numbers are, and the majority of them are women. And so there's no social distancing possible because either they are within the homes or they are living in small dormitories in different places across the city, in one of the in the UAE, and no healthcare is available. They don't have any access to healthcare, and social distancing doesn't arise because they are all living in small dormitories with 5, 6, 7 people in a small, small room, and so they don't have any recourse to getting health attention if they fall sick, neither for getting out. Now, the evacuation that is taking place in from the world, right? India is evacuating its workers. Now, many of these domestic workers who are living in homes and are employed continue to face whatever exploitation, but the ones who are living outside as part-time domestic workers or living in these dormitories outside, they are in great trouble because they don't have documents. How will they come back? Even if they want to come back to the country, they cannot come back because they don't have documents. Because if they want to leave the country, any of in the UAE, they have to pay fines because they've been living, once their visa expires, there's a system that you have to pay a certain amount to exit the country. So unless these countries announce an amnesty scheme under which they don't have to pay those fines, these women will be left to they cannot move from there, even if they want to, even if they are sick, even if they're unemployed. So as in India, you will see, the migrant workers and the poor migrant workers are the worst affected, so too in the UAE. And there is a large number of these, so they don't even come into the statistics that we are talking of. We are saying there are 3.4 million Indian migrants in the UAE. They don't even come in. We're not even counting them because they're undocumented. And many of them have gone on visit visas. But this is a new thing that has been devised by many unscrupulous agents and employers in the UAE to get people cheaply, get them on work visas, on visit visas of say 90 days, promise them jobs from here and leave them there, take their passports away and just leave them with the employers. And then after for 3 months, 90 days or whatever their visas they are valid, after that they become undocumented. But they continue to stay there because they cannot come back. Because if you have to exit, they will say, what were you doing here for 90 days? If they say we were working, they face a prison term. So they're in a kind of non-win-win situation or lose-lose situation, whatever they do. And this has become a big issue for, in the UAE as in other Gulf countries also. But the plus point is, I'm told Bahrain has announced an amnesty, and they're thinking and they're hoping that the UAE will also announce one, because we have a very large number of workers. And in the UAE, I understand that I haven't got the exact figures because I was going through the various databases, but they don't mention the women. How many women are there? What is the percentage? There are a lot of guesstimates. Some say 1/4, some say 30%, but no one is sure of how many women workers, and especially women domestic workers, are living in the UAE. And now they will not even register to come out. And the other problem is that they're not even covered under the labor laws because they are domestic workers up to 2 years ago. Actually, 2 years ago, I'm told the UAE has brought them under their labor laws. But even then, even though they are covered under the labor laws, only the ones who have their contracts, who go on contracts, with proper contracts, they are the ones who are able to still use or be covered under the labor laws. But the minute their contract becomes invalid, so to speak, when they either are thrown out by their employers, or they want to, or they leave, or they sort of try and escape the harsh conditions under which they are living, they become undocumented or illegal workers. And so that becomes a very, very big problem for them. And now under COVID-19, if they want to be evacuated again, as I mentioned, they're unable to do so. And this exposes them to a really sad situation where it's a double whammy for them, where they are poor, they don't have jobs, and then they're not able to even come out of the country when they want to go back home, if they want to go back home. And many will not go back because of the money. They get some money while they are staying there. Of course, right now the situation is very, very fragile everywhere, where jobs are few and far between, but domestic, and as Professor Maria said, domestic work as well as healthcare and as caregivers, women are still wanted, so they will get some kind of jobs, but it has become a very fragile situation for them. I just briefly, I'll mention a little bit about Madagascar and then come back to UAE. In Madagascar, the situation was different. You don't have very many, the new diaspora coming in from India, but you have 3 or 4 generations of women diaspora who went there about 4 generations ago, 5 generations ago. They got married and they went. And when Madagascar was still a French colony, but after Madagascar became independent, there is a substantial number of mainly women sort of diaspora who have become stateless. The reason being that at the time of independence, Madagascar did not give citizenship to everybody. You had to apply. And since these were mainly poor women who were living far away from the capital area, they were wives or even abandoned wives at times. So they had no access or no way of applying either for an Indian passport or for French citizenship. I'm sorry, for Malagasy citizenship. And so they were left out of the loop completely. They were invisible. And that's a term which we see in many of the studies of various, they're not visible, they're not in the portrait, they're not anywhere in the picture. They're just forgotten. And that's something similar which has happened even in the UAE. Now, if you see in the recent years, the UAE has brought out a number of reports showing the progress of women within the UAE, that is the UAE nationals. And there has been quite a marked improvement in their status in terms of empowerment, in terms of access to jobs for the local Emiratis. But again, the migrant women from South Asia, from say the Philippines, from various other places, they're completely out of the loop. They're not even in the portrait, as they say. I just wanted to also highlight one last point, that in the remittance figures as well, though women, as nurses and they go as nurses, they go in the retail sector, as I mentioned, the service sector and the hotels, they still, they contribute huge amounts to their families. But again, there is no mention of how much they are remitting home. And so there are again no figures available to or data that are also contributing. And as Professor Maria said, if they document the GDP, if they document or they include this in the GDP of any country, it'll add a substantive percentage to the GDP of any country. And so domestic work and caregivers, healthcare work, all that, and even housework, for women is totally not considered as economic activity, as an economic work. And therefore, women tend to be sidelined always. And I had a few policy recommendations which I'll make at a later time, and I'll stop now. Thank you.
Thank you very